Welcome to SST College of Arts and Commerce. This is SST Edupedia. Myself, Assistant Professor Deepa Agrawal from ITCS department. Today I am going to explain you the SYCS semester 4 topic, that is Angular JS. This topic is from the Advanced Application Development. So first we will see the contents. Introduction to Angular JS, Angular project file structure, anatomy of an Angular JS component, example of basic component, steps create an application in Angular JS. So first of all we will see what is Angular JS. Angular JS is a JavaScript based open source front-end web application framework first released in 2010. It was developed and maintained by Google and is now considered as one of the most popular JavaScript frameworks for building complex and dynamic single-page applications. AngularJS provides a structure of building web applications by extending HTML with additional attributes and makes it easier to create dynamic and interactive user interfaces. AngularJS also includes features such as two-way data binding, modularization, dependency injection, and a powerful template system. Overall, AngularJS is used to simplify the development process of complex web applications and provides a platform for building robust, scalable, and maintainable applications. Now, Angular project file structure. The file structure of an Angular project depends on the complexity of the application, but there are some common files and directories that are typically included in an Angular project. Here is a general outline of a typical Angular project file structure. First is E2E. This directory contains the end-to-end test for the application. Node modules. This directory contains the dependencies that are installed by npm. npm is nothing but the node package manager. src or source. This directory contains the source code for the application. src/app. This directory contains the core components of the applications, including components, services, models, and other supporting files. Source assets. This directory contains static assets such as images, fonts, and media files. Source environments. This directory contains environment specific configuration files. Index.html. This is the main HTML file that is served by the application. Main.ts. This is the main entry point for the application and responsible for bootstrapping the Angular application. Polyfills.ts. This file contains the polyfills required for different browsers. Styles.css. This file contains the global styles for the application. tsconfig.json. This file contains the TypeScript configuration for the project. Package.json. This file contains the project's dependencies, scripts, and metadata. Angular.json. This file contains the configuration for the Angular CLI. CLI is the command line interface. In this, what is polyfill? In Angular, a polyfill is a piece of code that implements features that are missing from a browser or runtime environment and allows applications to run in environments that do not natively support those features. For example, Angular is built using modern JavaScript and HTML standards, which might not be supported by older browsers. To ensure that Angular applications can run on those older browsers, Angular includes a set of polyfills that provide the necessary implementations of these modern features. Now, anatomy of an AngularJS component. An AngularJS component is a directive that acts as a building block for an AngularJS application and is defined using a directive definition object. A directive definition object is a plain JavaScript object that provides the directive with the necessary information to perform its task. An AngularJS component consists of the following parts. First is directive definition object. The directive definition object is a plain JavaScript object that provides the directive with its configuration. It contains the following properties. First is restrict. It specifies how the directive can be used in an HTML template. For example, as an element, attribute, class, or comment. Second is template. It defines the template for the component's view. This can be a string of HTML or a reference to an external template file. Controller. It defines the controller for the component. The controller is responsible for implementing the component's logic and behavior. Scope. Scope is defined for the component. The scope is an object that contains the component's data and methods. Now, second is controller. The controller is a JavaScript function that implements the component's logic and behavior. The controller can contain properties and methods that define the component's state and behavior. The controller is associated with the component's template by the directive definition object's controller property. Template. The template is the HTML that represents the component's view. It can contain bindings to properties and methods defined in the component's controller, as well as other AngularJS directives and filters. This is the example of basic component of AngularJS. In this example, a directive named myComponent is defined using a directive definition object. You can see in this example. And the directive definition object specifies the restrict property to be E, which means the directive can only be used as an element. The template property defines the component's view as a string of HTML, and the controller property associates with the component with the myController controller. The myController controller is defined using the Angular.module method and controller method. Now we'll see the steps to create an application in AngularJS. First, install the AngularJS. We can install AngularJS by downloading the latest version from the official website or by using a package manager like npm. After that, set up the development environment by creating an HTML file and including the AngularJS library. Then define the application module in the HTML file by using the ng-app directive. Create the application controller. We can create the application controller by using the ng-controller directive. The controller will be responsible for managing the application data and behavior. Now we see the very important part of the AngularJS, that is the data binding. There are two types of data binding in AngularJS. First is one-way data binding and second is two-way data binding. So in AngularJS, data binding is a mechanism that helps to establish a connection between the view and the model, such that any changes made to the model are reflected in the view and vice versa. There are two types of data binding. First, we'll see the one-way data binding. In this mechanism, where the model data is passed to the view, but any changes made in the view are not reflected back to the model. This type of data binding is achieved by using the double curly brackets. For example, if we want to show model property called name, we have to put the name in double curly bracket. The second is two-way data binding. In this data binding, the model data is passed to the view and any changes made in the view are reflected back to the model. This type of data binding is achieved by using the ngModel directive. For example, if we have a model property called name and we want to bind it to a text box, we can use the following syntax, like input type equal to text in double quotes and then ngModel equal to name. Now whenever the user changes the value in the text box, the corresponding change will be reflected back to the model and vice versa. So this is all about the introduction of AngularJS. Other topics we'll see in next video. Thank you.